Peter.
Five.
Okay, this is the committee of conference on the 2023 budget. And we left off yesterday on a sheet. It's the general fund one time, and we got to number 42, which is the back of the page, starting with, let's see where our differences are here. The first, I guess, is the Vermont State Colleges, the House. You had 2.5, we increased and moved to ARPA special fund. And did we close that out when we did the ARPA sheet?
The dollar amount is open, but you agreed to leave it in ARPA, so it can come off this sheet, it's not.
Yeah.
All right, so that, we don't need to do anything on that now. So the DEC, conservation districts, the one time there. One of the, obviously they had come in and they had asked for quite a bit of funding. In my other role on transportation, one of the things that we had was a slide which I felt was really compelling, and that was a significant amount of the progress on water quality had been attributed to the work done in the agricultural sector by the conservation districts. And so it just seemed that they were playing a very vital role in the ag sector of water quality, which is a very important and a major area of impairment to water. So we wanted to give them some additional resources to do their work, since the data was showing that their work was a major contributor to the progress that has been made to date. So that was the reason that we had that on, and that was one of their requests. We did not do all of them, but that was one of them for equipment, capital improvements.
So this is one of those areas where I appreciate the irony. Having been a former employee of the conservation districts, or the executive director of the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts a gazillion years ago, I know their work, I know their value. And so we see what you've requested here. Elsewhere in the budget, you have suggested that they receive $1 million from the Clean Water Fund, kind of no matter what, in terms, it goes before the Clean Water, it usurps the Clean Water Fund's authority. And I'm a little bit concerned about that. And so I can see us agreeing to this provision to provide the additional one-time money for equipment, et cetera, given the tremendous work that they do. But I'm not necessarily tying it to that language, but I am just flagging that a concern about that language, and that we will not be accepting that. So I don't know if we want to tie the two together. Do you recall what I'm talking about? Because I don't have it in front of me. With
I do recall, and it's language, and the reason that we did it was because if we wanted to address and give more resources to support water quality work in the agricultural sector, which is one of the major, we all know, is the major contributor. And so you can have people go through a grant process and apply. It's somewhat similar to what maybe was your concern around the needle exchange. You can either bundle it and then have it go through, or you can do a direct allocation, in the sense that it provides predictability, avoids the need to write grant applications, which take resources. And so out of the additional money, and remember, we actually dedicate, I think it's $11 million of general fund to water quality because of a percentage of the rooms and meals to support that. And it just seemed to us that $1 million looking to the long-term future and the role of the ag community in water quality, that it will be probably a long after we're out of here where that work would all be completed, and therefore we thought $1 million to give stability and ongoing assurance and the language back relative to the goal of improving water quality was warranted. So we can hold that larger discussion. You can look at the language. I know that the agency would prefer that the board decide, but thank you. I don't know what that bill is. Thank you. You'll find it? Oh, good. This
What's the
is
name of it?
234. That's 234.
That's the map stuff, I'll check.
Okay, so we can at least close this out and we'll have a longer discussion. And I understand your concurrence with this in no way is concurrence with the other related piece.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about clarification, I don't know, somehow the impression was given that we had changed our position on funding the victims advocate positions in the state's attorney's office, which is where the positions are located. That's where the payroll is done. That's where the, from a budgetary purpose, the positions are there. That was the 2.5. And so I just want to state that in no way have we changed our position that the money should go with, and that's our normal standard budgetary practice, to put the money where the positions are in state government. So if there was any confusion on that, I just want to clear it up. We have not agreed on that to alter the position that the Senate took to have a separate line in the state's attorney's budget. So we can move on.
Okay, but to be clear, on numbers 19 through and including 23, which are all associated with crime victim services, we have not closed those. We are continuing to have a conversation about that.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, moving on the
Because
back.
you had concern about backfilling federal grants and so
Yep.
forth, so.
Yes, a variety of concerns there.
Is an act that wants to change, well, it's a act that wants to change some part of Act 250.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, the next one is the request to make the 500,000. We had some discussion about language, and we had Hardy Merrill had sent a response as to why it was problematic to single out one particular refugee subgroup. So did we agree with the money? I guess not. We just got talking about the proposed language change.
Yeah, so did we get a different proposal for language?
The administration in their technical letter had recommended not making
Right.
it specific to Afghan refugees, but just refugee assistance.
Right,
Party, he suggested what Representative Hooper had suggested, or Representative Senator Baruth had suggested yesterday, I can't remember which, about just putting a period after refugees and not
attempting to dedicate the money to one particular group to the exclusion of another.
so with that change, we can agree to the money too?
Okay. The adult days, they came back in and they gave us data in terms of their, they're still operating at very diminished capacity, and this was to keep them at least stabilized and an operation and not lose any more.
We're gonna see this.
Of the COVID.
We know that elsewhere in the budget, you have language that says, come back to us with a proposal for ongoing funding. We've been covering these operating costs out of one-time money through the pandemic. And since they're still suffering from the same consequences of the pandemic, and knowing that you've asked elsewhere give us a plan for how we're going to cover these costs, which I hope looks really critically at operations, staff, just a real thoughtful analysis of how to make these important programs work. We'll accept so you're at 101.5 million and one time, and we'll accept that.
Okay, Senator Westman has his hand up.
One of the other issues is if we, and I don't have it in front of me, we did put language in that said a small piece of this could be carved out so Dale could take a look at trying to help them open new adult days, particularly in Barre and in Rutland, where they lost two rather substantial adult days.
So I don't recall that language, and so I think we can agree to the money. We may need to look at the language and think
about. I just wanted to raise the issue, particularly in Barre. There's 46 clients now that are all without an adult day, and any effort to get Dale to help the communities open an adult day, I think would be in all of our best interests.
Okay. And so let's remember that when we're doing language and also looking at ongoing money and positions in Dale. That's an area where we've had a difference of opinion, and so we can have a larger conversation about what Dale's doing and how we're supporting them in that.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on. This is to the league, and I think this kind of got caught up in kind of the final days of your work on the budget, and it was to continue providing assistance to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
We were just confused by their request. It seemed to be for work that they had already agreed to, and we, as you noted, it was in the last days, and we weren't able to sort it in the time period that we had. So we can agree to that 250,000 to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development for re-granting to the league. They've done fabulous work in helping towns.
Yeah, I think that the feedback on that was it was a really good resource that we made available. The next one has to do with appraisal and litigation costs. And just as a past history, we had provided this level of support to the appraisals and the litigation with the Trans-Canada dams that are along the Connecticut River. The one in Rockingham is totally in Vermont, and of course the Somerset Reservoir is all in Vermont. And this is, they use the same appraiser, the little town of Sheldon. And so this money is to treat Sheldon with the support and the litigation around their hydro dam. It's just that they didn't get the same level of support as other small rural villages because it was not a Trans-Canada dam. So you may recollect we changed the language a bit in terms of the appraisal and litigation section to make it a little broader. But this is for a small town of Sheldon. This ended up to be quite a substantial financial burden. And we felt, in fairness, that we should provide the same level of support to this hydro dam situation as we did with the other hydro dams.
Yes. Well, so now I'm confused because the information that I had was that we had not done this same sort of support for other communities. On the hydro dams that you're referencing, I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to pull up from the memory banks. Were we?
It's so long ago, the money to fund the cost of appraisal, we did in the budget, and it was back, I was vice chair and Susan Bartlett was chair. So I think it was
Oh my goodness.
2008. So that's why I have a historical knowledge, and we paid for the, gave a grant to PBR. They contracted with an entity, Sanssouci, and it was because these dams had not been reappraised since back when the state was considering purchasing them. And everybody else was getting reappraised multiple times. And obviously, if they were underappraised, then they were getting a good deal at the expense of other property taxpayers. So there's a long history of putting money, and the litigation dollars, there's reference about transferring and the amounts to the AG's office, and Bill Griffin was the lead person there in terms of reviewing the claims. So there's it's a long history, and it starts way back, I think, in 2008.
Or further back than that.
Well, back before that, we actually had the little towns of Topsom and Orange with litigation on poles and wires with Washington Electric. So utilities are a really complex area, and so there is a history, and this is simply providing, treating Sheldon the same as we did with the other towns, which would be like Somerset, Waterford, Barnet, Newbury, Wilder, Rockingham, and their appraisals.
Yeah.
And the appraisals all got litigated. And so we provided litigation assistance as well.
Okay. So I'd like to understand this better and get better information from the Department of Taxes, because we're hearing from them that this is unprecedented and that they are concerned about what the precedent would be going forward. So how much of an obligation, and I certainly appreciate what an enormous burden $250,000 is for a town like Sheldon to hold up. But I'd like to understand the consequences of this. If we go down this path, are we opening ourselves up to a flood of requests for similar support on litigation around reappraisals?
Well, I guess I would say the precedent was set relative to the complexity of hydro dams, flowage rights, and reservoirs. And the person that I worked with is the Deputy Commissioner, Rebecca Samaroff, at Taxes.
Okay, well, let us do our own work, and at this point, we'd like to leave that open.
All right, well, you can understand the background relative to, and if you'd like more history, I'm available, because I've been
Hey, Mary, I'm going to give Rebecca a heads up that you may be in touch. Is that okay?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay, so let's keep going.
Yeah.
The Green Mountain Care Board, and we S285 is moving forward, and the question and 5 million, I guess you've got 4.5.
Yeah.
And so we're carrying it. We're accounting for it, but it's not in the budget. It's in the bill itself.
Yeah.
And that needs to be negotiated between the two committees. So I don't know what discussion you've been having on your side.
Well, and as you know, we left it at, we moved it up in the bill to 4.5, and I think that just needs to now be negotiated between the committees, and we'll have to take care of where they land,
Okay,
assuming it's not a lot higher.
it can't be more than 5, that's for sure.
Yeah.
My question is, my preference is let it get negotiated and be carried in S-285.
I agree.
Okay. All right. My goodness. Not a lot of differences until we get down to the just transfers.
Well, let's just make sure, we haven't crossed off the HVAC, and we can agree to moving that to, we did it in ARPA.
What line are you, Mary?
I'm on 58. I don't think we've crossed that one off yet, but we can.
Oh, there's no delta. I was looking at that column.
Oh, well, I'm just seeing it in green.
Oh, all right.
So, but we did it in ARPA, and you're doing it here, and we can agree to that. And then you're right, we skipped over the E911 board because you're also not seeing it over there in the Delta. We had done one-time funding, and
So I can, it's the same amount of money in the House and Senate. It's just done as a transfer, because then you don't have to open up an additional appropriation department ID unit for a general fund to the E911 board. So it accomplishes the same purpose.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's
Okay.
down in row 65.
Yeah, it's down.
Oh, I see.
It's down. And then
Yep.
the other transfer was to the workers' comp. We had reduced the 6 million by 2 to get it down to 4. And that was, and you didn't do anything on that 6 million internal
No, we did not. So I'm imagining that certainly on these funds where we're talking about filling deficits, that we'll have a general conversation about how we're addressing our debt overall. And so we may revisit, should the workers' comp fund be 2 or 6 or 4, depending on what the final numbers are.
Why don't we just hold that and assume that, with the understanding that we would deal with it in that debt reduction package?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that gets us to the bottom of the sheet, doesn't it?
It sure does.
You did not discuss the DCF ones yesterday.
No, we didn't get to DCF, and we're getting dinged in the Senate to go to the
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah, so the significant pieces that are open on the one-time are crime victim services, DCF, and ADAP on the front page.
That's right. And do you want to close out any of the DCF ones at this time?
If you're getting bells, that's probably a longer conversation. We were curious under DCF if maybe Senator Westman could tell us a little bit more about line 33, the grants to 5 youth service provider or whomever is responsible. I assume it's Senator Westman.
Yeah, that's, we realized, and we had actually testimony, and I think Spectrum came in. They're one of the 5 in terms of the fact that they have not had an increase in their level of support for the services that they provide to youth. And so we felt that they were really critical in serving that particular vulnerable population of youth. And so that's why we felt that we wanted to treat them. They were existing service delivery program, and that they needed some financial recognition of their increased costs. So There are 5 of them around the state. We can give you the names of the 5, but it was a recognition that that they operate on very limited budgets, and that we needed to shore them up as much as any of the other provider groups.
Is it just generally to the 5, or are there specific services that they will be providing as a subset? Is this general operation or a specific thing that we're looking for?
It's just to help underwrite the cost of providing the existing services. So we didn't get into the level of specificity in terms of directing it or adding them to do it. It's to help fund what they're doing now.
Yeah, I had just heard that it was for
I
regular.
guess that Stephanie said maybe we should have called it stabilization.
Okay, I had heard it was specifically for runaway youth.
No, that's not true.
Okay, all right. Well, let's
Now,
talk
that's
about,
obviously a group that they serve, the
Yeah.
homeless and so forth, but no, we did not fund a particular service over and above any of the other ones that they might be providing to youth.
well, we're doing a memory lane on me. We used to be shelter parents for our local youth service bureau. Used to take in lots of runaway kids. It was really great work a long time ago.
Well, I don't mean to say that that wouldn't be one of the services they
Yeah.
provided, that we don't value it. We just didn't to select one service over another.
Well,
Yeah.
and one of the 5 would be Washington County Youth.
Yeah. Yeah, so we would be interested in, can you, so it's Washington County, what are the other 4?
There's one in Windsor. We can give them spectrum.
Send us the list.
I already provided Kimberly with the list. It's all of the ones that aren't hooked up with a family center, or that are just youth service.
Standalones.
Yeah,
There are 5.
the association is either 11 or 13, but it's just the 5 that just do that work. There are a number of places around the state that have organizations that do the same work and are part of the association, but it's just the 5.
Okay, so we'll look at that, and when we come back together, we can revisit the whole DCF area, and as well as those other 2 that are open, the big blocks that are open.
Yeah, and I guess I would say for some of them, DCF is just the conduits and the money, including diapers and milk donors. So we'll hold that open. I'll run to the floor.
Okay,
And our plan is to come back at 1? Is that
yes,
how we left it?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
So why don't we adjourn? We can go off live now because the Senate is, and I guess the House is convening.